What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla Kong Supernova theory video. In this one, we will be revisiting the maybe Spacegodzilla artwork from Godzilla VS Kong in order to reanalyze it, given the context of the new movie being called Supernova and the potential teasers to Spacegodzilla appearing in it, in order to see if this can give us any clues as to where the future of the MonsterVerse is heading. So many years ago, going way back to 2021, concept art was discovered for Godzilla vs. Kong. It's actually featured in the art book, The Art of Godzilla vs. Kong, that features multiple Godzillas, Kongs, and humanity on both sides, the Godzilla and the Kong side, teaming up against this rogue Godzilla in the middle that is depicted different than all the others. It's blue. This winged blue Godzilla seemingly raining fire down upon the Kongs while getting blasted by the Godzillas himself. The Godzilla Kong art book doesn't offer much information on this at all. All it gives us is that this artwork originally depicts the Titan War. It was meant to feature in Godzilla vs. Kong, and it was meant to give us a glimpse at what the history of the MonsterVerse was supposed to be, implying that the war between Godzillas and Kongs has raged for a long time, stretching all the way back to the early days of humanity. I find that to be a very unsatisfying explanation. This artwork has been analyzed to death over the years, but it continues to be relevant, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, this isn't just concept art. If it was just concept art that was featured in an art book, I don't think I'd be giving it much attention anymore. I never really gave it a ton of attention in the first place. I only briefly discussed it around Godzilla Kong: The New Empire's teaser. But this wasn't just artwork. This really meant something. This was actually featured on a massive set that was built for Godzilla vs. Kong and had full sequences shot here. Thousands of dollars and at least one full day of shooting went to this single location, went to this backdrop. This artwork was supposed to be featured so prominently throughout Godzilla vs. Kong. If you're wondering where it came in the movie Godzilla vs. Kong, just after Kong sits upon the throne, Gia, Andrews, and Lind were supposed to enter Kong's throne through one of the many doorways you see on the ground near the human perspective under Kong's feet. They actually find inside a shrine with a couple large Kong statues standing next to it, and Gia places her Kong doll on an altar, representing the fact that the Iwi used to live here, and Gia and Kong were both becoming closer to their ancestors. Shortly after this, Godzilla's atomic breath was going to cause earthquakes in this hollow earth room, and it would start to break. We don't know much, but we do know from interviews with Kaylee Hoddle, including interviews I have done with her at Anime Matsuri, that explosions were going to be going off in this scene, and it was actually going to knock Lind out. We see a little bit of those clips in behind the scenes snippets over the years. This is how Lind gets injured in the original version of the script. Very importantly, this was cut from Godzilla vs. Kong, and there are a number of reasons for that. Number one, Adam Wingard said he didn't want to include a lot of things that would pigeonhole him for the future. There are certain things like the post-credit scene for Godzilla vs. Kong which were simply cut from the movie because Wingard didn't want to force the hand of future MonsterVerse filmmakers, or himself, into having to follow up on a very specific direction in the future. He wanted the freedom to go wherever the future took him. So maybe this was cut so that they didn't have to follow up on this flying Godzilla or potentially Space Godzilla in the next movie. The number one reason it was cut was for pacing. The original scene supposedly took a lot longer to explain a lot less than the scenes we got in the final version of the film, and wasted time that could have been spent getting us to the Godzilla vs. Kong Hong Kong fight. Adam Wingard said his goal for Godzilla vs. Kong was to make dense entertainment, a movie that covered as much ground as possible as fast as it could. This also might have simply been an earlier outdated portion of the script, where Godzilla journeys to Hollow Earth and there's a brief fight in the throne room before the Hong Kong battle begins. Now, there's another thing that comes into play. Around this same time, Toho had asked Legendary to stop specifically acknowledging Godzilla as a species. While we don't know too much about this and not everything is public, Toho seems worried that by showing other members of Godzilla's species, it first of all weakens the core themes of who Godzilla is supposed to be, it dilutes their IP, and it also creates potential loopholes where Warner Bros. And Legendary could try to use Godzilla's likeness without licensing Godzilla himself. For instance, if in a future movie they kill Godzilla off but resurrect Dagon, do they have to still pay the licensing fee for Godzilla if Dagon is an original MonsterVerse creation? These are tricky questions that Toho does not want to have to answer. However, it is still important to note that the Godzilla vs. Kong art book makes it very clear that Godzilla still is a part of a species, not only in this cave art where it mentions that Godzilla and what seems to be other members of his species are fighting alongside him, but also in the throne room section of the art book. It specifically mentions that the original Titan War happened between the ancestors of Godzilla and Kong. The throne room is stated to be filled with the bones and remnants of Godzilla's ancestors, including Kong's axe, which is made of the leftover parts of a Godzilla. Analyzing the artwork itself, I've seen so many people thinking that this artwork depicts the creature Zo-zla-halawa. Zo-zla-halawa is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the MonsterVerse lore. Zo-zla-halawa is simply another name for Godzilla. It's what the Iwi called him. It stands for the Great Eternal Enemy and represents the fact that Godzilla and his species will always be at war with Kong. The Iwi legend is about a crooked member of Godzilla's species who became power-hungry, eating a star and becoming unstoppable. It's always seemed like a big metaphor for Godzilla being able to unleash his atomic breath, and also for the fact that when Godzilla eats radiation, he sucks it up like he's eating a star. I've seen many people, including myself in the past, interpret that this flying Godzilla in the artwork here is actually Burning Godzilla. Burning Godzilla, as we all know, when he unleashes his atomic pulse, was able to unleash it with Mothra's wings visible in the pulse itself. It seems that the flying Godzilla here could just simply be a metaphor, and that's entirely possible. I think that's a very, very big possibility. A burning Godzilla would be something that would require both Godzilla and Kong to stop him, although I don't think that's where we're going. If this concept art holds any relevance, it's not because it's a burning Godzilla that Godzilla and Kong are fighting. It's gonna be because it's Space Godzilla. So let's discuss the possibility. Is there any evidence to suggest that this is Space Godzilla? Back in the day, I was very resistant to this theory, but over the years, it becomes harder and harder to ignore. Where Godzilla is flying very clearly seems to depict space itself. You can see those white dots seem to represent stars, and while not necessarily visible on this reconstruction, which I've been using throughout the video, this is a reconstruction I made where I photoshopped together the concept art piece with the actual behind the scenes set photos of the wall, so you could see what they actually created in real life on the real set, as the concept art didn't match one-to-one exactly. On the real concept art piece, which I don't see many people post, I only see a cropped version of it, you can see this background goes on for quite a long time. It's got these white dots in the back, which seem to represent stars. The color palette's obviously very different with all of these blues and blacks, contrasting harshly against the browns where the Kongs and the Godzillas stand. But it's also, very importantly, got these swirling nebulas. Now, one of them is because the art piece actually repeats itself. If you look closely, you can see the winged Godzilla repeats on a separate page. It just kind of flips and mirrors. But if you look on the other page, where the artwork is still unique, it's pretty hard to deny that this doesn't look like a spiral galaxy, like a nebula. And as we continue to discuss on this channel, nebulas are the result of supernova explosions, which would give the new movie a much more prominent title and namesake. Is this creature coming out of a supernova itself? In the concept art, it kind of looks like it is. The longer you spend with this artwork, the harder it is to see anything but an invading creature coming down from the stars to fight Godzilla and Kong. And I'll admit, I've seen some concept arts of Space Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla 1994, where Space Godzilla has kind of wings instead of the crystals, and I could definitely see how that could become an inspiration for this art piece. It's also like, if you don't want to finalize your Space Godzilla design and you just want to imply a Godzilla from space, what better way to do that than just to put wings on Godzilla? That way you don't have to commit to a design yet, especially when you remember this artwork was supposed to only be glimpsed for moments in the background of wider shots. It wasn't supposed to get its own close-up like at the end of Kong's Skull Island. So you really didn't need to commit to a full Space Godzilla design. A Godzilla with wings floating in what appears to be outer space definitely represents the idea well enough. I've always thought that Space Godzilla seems like an enemy Adam Wingard would want to use and would do very well with. And remember, Godzilla Kong Supernova was greenlit while Adam Wingard was still in talks to return, and some of his ideas might be used for this next movie. One of his ideas was that the next film would have a lot more of an emphasis on Godzilla, and the best way to achieve that would be to give Godzilla a direct antagonist, much like how Kong had to fight Scar King, who was really the anti-Kong in the last movie. Now it's time for Godzilla to fight the anti-Godzilla. On the other hand, the space part of this artwork could simply be more of a metaphor. It could represent the Earth, while the brown portions underneath with the Kongs, Godzillas, and humanity could represent Hollow Earth, or potentially it's inversed. Maybe those big spirals are actually Hollow Earth portals, and the Godzillas and Kongs are fighting a creature coming out of the Hollow Earth itself. You know, maybe it wasn't supposed to be a Space Godzilla, but instead a Godzilla powered up on Hollow Earth radiation. It could also be the ocean, and those spirals are whirlpools or whatever. You know, there's lots of ways to interpret this artwork. I personally think the most most accurate one seems to be the space one, but it could be anything, I suppose. The only other thing I could say that maybe reflects that this could be the Hollow Earth is that some of the other artwork in the Godzilla vs. Kong art book also represents the Hollow Earth with this blue crystal radiation energy that looks very similar to this. It doesn't look identical, but it kind of has a similar aesthetic with the blue and the white. A lot of the Hollow Earth energy depicted in the concept art book kind of does look like this, but it's really hard to ignore that what appears to be spiral nebula and this winged creature coming down upon them. The most important part of this artwork, and the most unfortunate part, is that it is strictly non-canon. It was cut from the film, and that's that. This truly doesn't bear much relevance on the movies. It's not in Godzilla vs. Kong. Unfortunately, despite the fact that it was supposed to be, it wasn't included in the movie, and it certainly wasn't included or referenced in The New Empire. The New Empire specifically makes sure to reference Godzilla as the monster that ate a star, so defeating the Zo-zla-halawa theory even more. The only reason I continue to bring this up is because it does show a clear intent. There's no way this concept art is just put together on accident, featuring a couple Godzillas and many Kongs taking on a flying Godzilla. That doesn't just happen on accident. Somebody at some point in time was told to make this artwork because someone at some point in time had the idea that they were going to be following up on it. That's why I think it's important. So despite the fact that it doesn't make the final cut, it does show that somewhere along the line somebody did want to do something like this. And what is this but Space Godzilla? I just think after all this time, it seems more and more likely, especially with the new movie being called Godzilla Kong Supernova and seeming like the villain's gonna be coming from space. Will this actually be the Space Godzilla we all know from Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla in 1994, revamped for the MonsterVerse, another Toho monster brought to life in the MonsterVerse the way King Ghidorah was? Who knows, maybe it could be an off-brand version of it, a Godzilla from the stars, a flying lizard that resembles Godzilla that comes from another planet's version of Godzilla, a multi-dimensional version of Godzilla. We don't know, but I think the most likely outcome here is that at some point somebody wanted to do a Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla follow-up in the MonsterVerse and told someone else to do some concept art representing that. That concept art made it into filming and then not into the movie, and was it forgotten about? Not by us fans, and maybe not by some of the filmmakers either. Godzilla Kong The New Empire uses some of the cut ideas from Godzilla vs. Kong. For instance, the fight with Scylla was a carryover from where King of the Monsters left off. The fight with Tiamat, while originally a very different type of fight, was supposed to be featured in Godzilla vs. Kong before being scrapped from the movie. And so it's possible that somewhere along the line, someone picks up on this concept art or on the ideas that were supposed to be developed here and brings it to life in this next movie. I'm not sure, I just wanted to revisit this concept art to give my thoughts. Again, it's not canon, and it strictly does not mean anything to the canon or the lore of the MonsterVerse as is. Otherwise, we'd be talking about how Spacegodzilla seems to have been a threat that appeared already. It seems like Godzilla and Kong have already fought him in the past, which would be pretty interesting. But all that we can say for now is that someone somewhere along the lines wanted this concept art to be made and wanted it to be in the movie, and maybe that means something for the next film. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please comment down below and let me know what you guys are thinking. Do you guys think that this concept art could represent Spacegodzilla, or do you think it still has any relevance at all? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But please comment below and keep this conversation going. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.